Good day, one and all, friends and foes. You know who you are. I'm Cal, and you're listening to Missing Links Movie Podcast, your weekly reel of the latest in film news. We're going to spend some time going over our top billed articles, new trailers, and release dates, our spin-off stories, and what's opening in theaters this week. So, whatever you're a fan of in the movie realm, this is the podcast for you. The pod is currently on Spotify and YouTube on the channel Missing Link Movies. And this podcast is unedited, improvised, off the cuff in a way that you've never heard before. So, to get started, let's introduce our top billed stories this week. Starting with the box office report. For the weekend of March 1st through March 3rd, 2024. At number 1, we saw the debut of Dune Part 2 with an excellent debut of $82 million. Something to keep in mind as a frame of reference, the first Dune movie made half as much, only $41 million with its opening weekend. It went on to gross $108 million in the domestic market and $325 million internationally for a total of $433 million worldwide, which by today's standards, or even before it came out by those standards, kind of a disappointment at only $430 million. Honestly, it was pretty touch and go. I remember at the time whether or not we were going to get a sequel, but Warner Bros. Saw fit to take a chance and go for it. I'm not sure what the budget was for Dune Part 1, but Dune Part 2 having a successful debut of, double that amount with $82 million is phenomenal, and I imagine we're going to see a much more successful box office run. Dune Part 1 came out in 2021. It wasn't necessarily in the throes of COVID, but it was kind of, if I remember, one of the, possibly the first big movie to be released after we started to come out of COVID and theaters had just started opening back up. So that's one of the reasons it didn't make as much, is because generally audiences had become accustomed not to go to theaters. But now that it's been a few years, very successful debut for Dune Part 2. And I'm really hoping, I saw it, I went and saw it opening night. And it was awesome. And I'm seeing it again for sure. I highly recommend going to see it on a big screen, on a premium format, whether that's Dolby or IMAX or, whatever proprietary format that your local theater chain has. But I would just recommend seeing this in the best way possible. It was so cool, and I really hope we get a part 3, or however they would call it. But anyway, so that was at number 1. At number 2, we had Bob Marley, One Love. Number 3, Ordinary Angels. Number 4, The Chosen, Season 4, Episodes 7 to 8. Number 5, Madam Web. Number 6, Migration. Number 7, Demon Slayer, Kimetsu no Yaiba, to the Hashira Training. Number 8, Wonka. Number 9, Argyle. And number 10, The Beekeeper. Pretty much everything from 2 on down, made, Bob Marley had $7 million, and then everything else just lower than that. So to go from $82 million at Dune at 1, to go to Bob Marley with $7 million at 2, huge drop off, huge disparity. Everyone who went to the theaters went to see Dune. So, but this week there are a couple strong contenders for that number 1 spot. Most of all, Kung Fu Panda 4. We will see if Dune wins out, or if Kung Fu Panda is able to debut and take that top spot. It's hard to say. I could see it going either way. With Kung Fu Panda 4 being a family film, much more universally marketable than Dune Part 2, this heavy, long sci-fi movie that's a sequel. Well, I guess Kung Fu Panda is a sequel too. But what Dune has in its strength is I imagine a lot of people are going to see it in premium formats, which are more expensive tickets. One of the reasons the Avatar movies have made so much money is because, sure, yeah, lots of people go see them, but particularly lots of people go see them in those formats that are more expensive. And I could see the same going for Dune, allowing it to hold on to its number one spot, fending off Kung Fu Panda 4, or we could see Kung Fu Panda 4's, family-oriented, audience getting it that number one spot. So we'll see. Okay, I think that's it. That's it for the box office report. As for our other stories, a lot of kind of business stuff, not so much a lot of news in the realm of like huge movie sequel announced, or, crazy, film festival. But anyways, starting with, let's see, Deadline's Anthony D'Alessandro reporting, Sony Pictures Entertainment promotes Ravi Ahuja to president and COO, will continue to serve as TV chairman. 3 years after arriving at Sony Pictures, Ravi Ahuja has been named president and chief operating officer of Sony Pictures Entertainment, effective April 1st. The executive, who is currently chairman, Global Television Studios and Corporate Development, is being promoted to a position that hasn't been previously filled. While Sony Pictures Entertainment didn't comment on succession planning, Ahuja's promotion has all the marks of exactly that in regards to who will ultimately take the reins after Tony Vinciqueira's tenure ends as SPE, that's Sony Pictures Entertainment, chairman and CEO. Duly note that Vinciqueira is not leaving the studio anytime soon. Ahuja will keep his current chairman role and title at Sony Pictures Television and continue to report to Vinciqueira. Similar to Vinciqueira, Ahuja is a Fox Networks vet. The duo worked together there. Ahuja joined Fox in 2007 after a 12-year run after serving as CFO of Virgin Entertainment Group. As CFO of the Fox Networks Group, Ahuja oversaw finance, strategy, and business development for all its business units: 20th Century Fox Television, Fox Broadcasting, Fox Cable Networks, Fox Sports, National Geographic, and Fox Networks Europe and Africa, Latin America, and Asia. Sony Pictures Television, under Ahuja's leadership, has posted strong growth across its divisions, expanding the studio's global production capabilities and more than doubling the number of shows produced by the studio. SPT now makes hundreds of shows across scripted, unscripted, kids programs, and game shows around the world. Ahuja has shaped SPT's content strategy, focusing on its strengths as an independent studio while navigating the realities of today's TV business. Among the big franchises that have flourished during his reign are The Boys, Outlander, and Cobra Kai. Ahuja also bolstered collaboration with PlayStation Productions, leveraging the company's IP, including The Last of Us, which debuted as the second most watched HBO series premiere in the last 13 years, and Twisted Metal, a hit comedy for Peacock. SPT has 2 new projects underway, God of War and Horizon Zero Dawn. SPT earned 53 Primetime Emmy nominations last year, including 3 Outstanding Drama Series nominees for The Last of Us, Better Call Saul, and The Crown, while Jeopardy won the Emmy for Outstanding Game Show for a 4th year in a row. Also last year, The Night Agent was the #1 original on Netflix around the world. As part of SPT's growth, Ahuja established a dedicated game show production group boosted by such franchises as Wheel of Fortune and Jeopardy, which both scored landmark renewal deals from ABC's owned and operated stations this past year. Let's see. Also, absorption of a VFX company, Pixmondo, acquisition of a premier drama producer studio called Bad Wolf. So, anyways, I just wanted to bring this up because I didn't want to have Disney be the only, organization that we want to share updates for. I think it's good to share updates for all kinds of business that's going on. And so with Ravi Ahuja shifting to CEO from Disney Television, it sounds like they're very impressed with how he's handled their television division and want to have him continue growing his sphere of influence. Now that he is a chief operating officer of Sony Pictures Entertainment in general, it'll be I think we will have some things to look forward to in what Sony Pictures decides to do theatrically, because as it said, he's made some strong moves in the shows that they've put out, The Boys, Cobra Kai. I'm not familiar with Outlander, but also increasing their efforts in adapting like their video game IP with The Last of Us and Twisted Metal, and the forthcoming God of War and Horizon Zero Dawn. It'll be interesting if, they maybe shift any of those as yet upcoming projects like God of War, Horizon Zero Dawn. I wonder if they'll shift those to theatrical releases. I don't imagine they will, because those are both coming out on streaming services. God of War is coming out on Amazon, and Horizon Zero Dawn is coming out on Netflix. So I imagine they probably have some contracts in place with those streaming services to do them as series. But I wonder if we could see any of those or any other video game IPs possibly come to theaters, be adapted for that. Like, I would love another maybe Ratchet and Clank animated movie. They did one a few years ago, but it wasn't great. So yeah, but we'll see what other projects we have in store coming from this change. All right. Our next story comes from Variety's Jordan Moreau. John Wick director Chad Stahelski signs first look deal with Lionsgate to focus on original action movies. Chad Stahelski, the director of all 4 John Wick movies, has signed a multi-year first-look production deal between Lionsgate and his production company, 8711 Entertainment. The deal expands the existing partnership between Stahelski and Lionsgate and allows the stunt-heavy filmmaker to focus on making original action movies. The deal was announced Wednesday by Adam Fogelson, chair of the Lionsgate Motion Picture Group. The news comes weeks after Stahelski was given the reins to oversee the John Wick and Highlander franchises across all media for Lionsgate. The next film he's directing is a remake of Highlander, starring Henry Cavill. Lionsgate has been my, quote from Chad, Lionsgate has been my home studio throughout my career as a feature director, so it only makes sense that I would base our film production business with the team that has been such extraordinary partners for so many years, said Stahelski. Next up for the John Wick universe is the Ballerina spin-off, starring Ana de Armas. Last month it was delayed from this summer to 2025, as Stahelski works with director Len Wiseman on additional action sequences for the film. So, a first look deal basically just means that when Stahelski has a new film or project in the works, Lionsgate has dibs, so to speak, on checking it out first and deciding whether or not they want to, produce it, distribute it, that sort of thing, have the rights to it before other studios get a chance to look, and if Lionsgate chooses to pass on it. So Chad Stahelski has a lot of things on his plate. I mean, with the Highlander remake, as the article mentioned, as well as the John Wick universe. I don't think they've confirmed if any John Wick movies are coming out, but with they had one spin-off called The Continental just come out. They've got the Ballerina with Ana de Armas, and so he's still overseeing that universe. In addition, he's also in the process of doing a adaptation of Ghosts of Tsushima. It's a Sony PlayStation video game that they're adapting. So I'm kind of surprised the Ravi Ahuja article didn't mention that one. So he's working on an adaptation of that, and that should be really cool. Just a business, I guess, update that we'll see about. So our next story comes from, the AP News. Morgan Lee, Rust armorer convicted of involuntary manslaughter and fatal shooting by Alec Baldwin on movie set. The article is rather long. It goes into a lot of the details of the court case, the things that they found. But to summarize, a jury convicted a movie weapons supervisor of involuntary manslaughter Wednesday in the fatal shooting of a cinematographer, Helena Hutchins, by actor Alec Baldwin during a rehearsal on the set of the Western movie Rust. The verdict against movie armorer Hannah Gutierrez-Reed assigned new blame in the October 21 shooting death of cinematographer Helena Hutchins after an assistant director last year pleaded no contest to negligent handling of a firearm. Gutierrez-Reed also had faced a second charge of tampering with evidence, stemming from accusations that she handed a small bag of possible narcotics to another crew member after the shooting to avoid detection. She was found not guilty on that count. Let's see. Lead attorney Jason Bowles said afterward that Gutierrez-Reed will appeal the conviction, which carries a penalty of up to 18 months in prison and a $5,000 fine. Let's see. No sentencing date immediately set. Yeah, so a lot of further details in the article, but this is the latest development in the death of Helena Hutchins. So with this kind of safety, I don't know if I want to go into the whole thing of, what should have happened, who was at fault, because the article does a pretty good job like explaining all of that pretty impartially. Yeah, there's a lot of safety checks that were ignored or neglected, and and it resulted in a very tragic and unfortunate circumstance. But this isn't necessarily the end. This isn't like the concluding chapter of kind of this series of events, but just the latest with the armorer that is meant to oversee and supervise weapons on set is convicted of involuntary manslaughter, not having been able to make sure that things were safe with the firearms. Okay, let's see. And then our last story comes from Variety's Catsy Steppen. I see that every time, and I'm not sure if it's Steven or Steppen. But anyways, headlining Ming-Na Wen joins Sony's new Karate Kid film. Ming-Na Wen has joined the cast of Sony's new Karate Kid film. Previously announced cast members include American-born Chinese star Ben Wong in the titular role, plus Jackie Chan and Ralph Macchio, who will reprise their characters from previous entries in the franchise. Joshua Jackson and Sadie Stanley will also star. Much like the film's plot, details of Wen's role are currently under wraps. Sony Pictures will release the film in theaters December 13th, 2024. I feel like this podcast has become like half a Karate Kid podcast, because I feel like every week we're getting a new story about this movie, like for some reason. This is one of the few movies that I keep getting updates on. More than, any other Marvel movie or Disney animated movie or Pixar movie. It's like they are being a lot more open about, what's going on with this Karate Kid movie. Ming-Na Wen, let's see, stars as Fennec Shand on the Disney Plus series The Book of Boba Fett, a spinoff of The Mandalorian, and was recently seen in the second season of HBO's Hacks. She was honored as a Disney legend in 2019 for her work in numerous Disney projects, including Mulan, where she voiced Mulan, Marvel's Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., and The Joy Luck Club, and she received a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame in May 2023. She is next slated to star in the film Peachville, opposite Academy Award nominee Paul Giamatti and Simon Pegg. Whoa! All right. Let's see. I hadn't heard of this Peachville movie, but I like Ming-Na Wen because I watched Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., a very good show. And I like Paul Giamatti. He's like one of my favorite actors ever. And Simon Pegg is awesome as well. A great comedic actor. But so when I look up this Peachville movie, the only thing that comes up is articles about Ming-Na Wen joining Karate Kid. So I guess this is the first we're hearing of this Peachville movie. But I'm going to look forward to that. Are you kidding? But Ming-Na Wen, awesome actress, and very much looking forward to another reason to look forward to Karate Kid. Jackie Chan, Ralph Macchio, Joshua Jackson. Holy crap. Ming-Na Wen now. What a cast. All right, let's see. That's a wrap on our top stories. So let's fly in our spin-off section where we talk about some things that aren't exactly huge news, but fun to talk about regardless. And so for this week, sort of news, but also sort of a wider discussion about things. So kind of comes, the discussion kind of comes from an article from Variety's Todd Spangler. The headline says, Disney should make fewer movie sequels, take more shots on goal with content strategy. Activist investor argues in 133-page white paper. So some background to this, I can't remember how much I've talked about it, if at all, on the podcast, but there's basically an activist investor group that is seeking to put a couple of board members on Disney's board. And what an activist investor is it is a investor that seeks to like pressure or change the way that a company does things in a more active way. That's why they're called activists, is because rather than just sort of owning shares and like, hoping they do well, they take a more proactive approach in influencing how things are going. And so there is this activist investor called, his name is Nelson Peltz. He is part of an organization called Trian Partners, who, and for the last, couple years, several months, have been lobbying to get himself, Nelson Peltz, and a former Disney CFO, Jay Rasulo, onto Disney's board. And they have been lobbying really hard to do that. And it's not so much that these guys are like fans of Disney and they want to see the company do better. It's more of they're shareholders of Disney and they want to make more money on their shares by having a more direct influence in how the company is run. That is a very like reductive summary. Financial and business people could explain that a lot more in depth and better than I could. But that is the gist of it. And Disney is trying to very hard. The Disney board is, Bob Iger and not necessarily the board as a whole, but Disney as an organization is trying very hard to keep Nelson Peltz and Jay Rasulo off the board. They do not want them on the board, to the point where a few weeks ago, Disney shareholders were sent a presentation, I guess you could call it, a document telling shareholders how to fill out their ballots for the upcoming vote. And the way they told their shareholders to fill out the ballots was specifically the way to keep the Peltz and Rasulo off the board. So they really do not want this to happen. But so it's just been a continuing development where there's been a lot of back and forth on with Peltz and Rasulo trying to get on the board, Disney trying to keep them off the board. And so in the latest, we've got this article saying, let's see, Nelson Peltz's Trian Partners, which is agitating to get 2 seats on Disney's board, on Monday released a lengthy white paper analyzing the Mouse House's financial performance and suggesting strategic fixes. So back to me, this is a important development because up till now, one of the things that Disney has said about Peltz and Rasulo is that one of the reasons they don't want them on the board is they don't have the experience necessary. They haven't suggested any concrete plans of how they're going to improve share value. They only seem to be wanting a seat on the board without, supposedly to improve the company without pitching any specific ideas for doing so. So this is Peltz and Rasulo's response to that is we do have some actual ideas of what we want to do with the company. The article says, Disney opposes the candidates put forward by Trian, another activist firm, Blackwell's, as, quote, lacking the appropriate range of talent, skill, perspective, and or expertise. Quote continues, for more than a year, Trian has described its thoughts on strategies and goals. Nope, sorry, this is not, never mind. So that was Disney saying they lack the appropriate range of talent, skill, perspective. But the Peltz-run firm Trian says in the white paper, quote, for more than a year, Trian has described its thoughts on strategies and goals, some of which Disney has now implemented. such as reducing excess costs, reinstating a dividend, and making the parks business a bigger part of Disney's growth strategy. We are now making our 100-plus page presentation public with our comprehensive views. So among the proposals in the 133-page white paper, which you can read, it is very long, a whole lot of stuff. In fact, I actually might read this. This actually looks pretty interesting. A lot of numbers, a lot of business stuff, but interesting. Okay, sorry. The article says the hedge fund says that to achieve a better return on its streaming content, Disney should take more shots, quote, shots on goals and increase creative risks outside of its core franchises, similar to Netflix. The company, Trian says, should, quote, explore allocating more budget dollars across lower cost, easier to produce projects to further balance Disney's higher cost franchise content. Prioritizing retention content spend should diversify away the risk of expensive streaming flops. So myself, or actually, let's read this next part as well. Trian also recommends that Disney make fewer movie sequels. Quote, Disney's flywheel spins the fastest when the company creates or acquires new intellectual property and monetize, the white paper says. Sequels, quote, continues, sequels are less risky film ventures to produce, but do not drive long-term benefits in the same way that new IP can. The firm continues, the percentage of Disney films that are sequels, prequels, spin-offs, or remakes has dramatically increased, suggesting a creative engine that is sputtering. Trian is calling for a comprehensive review of studio operations and culture by the board, including the state of leadership, process, and workflow. So overall, So one of the things that they suggest in this paper is rather than having fewer high budgeted spin-offs, remakes, sequels, etc., but to take the budget allocated, the huge budgets allocated to those things and splitting them up among smaller original projects. An interesting strategy. That sounds kind of obvious, but yeah, that's not what Disney's doing. You know, we're getting freaking this year. We're getting a Moana sequel. We are getting Deadpool and Wolverine. We're getting Mufasa, like a prequel to the Lion King live action movie, and I'm sure all the budgets for all those movies are probably rather large. Moana actually less so. Moana probably has a smaller budget since it was originally a Disney Plus series. But I think that's an interesting plan, is to have more consideration for maybe producing some smaller budget titles with a more and rather than just throwing things at the wall to see what sticks, but to, as they say, shot on goal, where they are really particular and really try to do some research about what audiences will respond well to, and funding smaller budget projects across a wide range that will, improve their standing financially. Also, Trian recommends two potential paths for ESPN, which Disney owns. One, that ESPN's standalone streaming service, which Disney is aiming to debut by the fall of 2025, be launched, quote, ideally with a bundle partner like Netflix or Amazon. Or two, that ESPN should harvest cash out of its linear business to selectively reinvest in ESPN Plus and higher growth parts of Disney's business, such as Disney Plus. I have no idea what that means, to be quite honest. Elsewhere, Trian suggests merging the Disney Plus and Hulu product and content organizations to cut costs, which means they should phase out Hulu entirely, just shutter Hulu and just have it all on Disney Plus. In addition, Trian says it believes Hulu plus live TV, quote, is a loss-leading product that has struggled to scale and adds limited strategic value. Per the white paper, in our view, Live is not competitively positioned compared to YouTube TV following its deal to secure NFL Sunday Ticket, and is no longer positioned as a low-cost alternative to cable. So that sounds like, they just want to get rid of Hulu. They also want to fix the succession problems for the company. Let's see. They want so Bob Iger's contract expires at the end of 2026, and Treon wants to, I don't know, somehow fix that. Maybe that's described in more detail in the paper, but it does say, let's see. Where do I? So backing up as well. Much of Trion's white paper dwells on making the case for change on Disney's board. For example, the hedge fund argues that Disney's $71 billion deal for 20th Century Fox, which closed in 2019, was strategically flawed. Quote, "We are skeptical that Disney has delivered on its targeted synergies and EPS accretion, given the deterioration of Disney's media earnings power following the acquisition. The Disney-Fox deal was arguably the result of misaligned incentives," Treon's white paper says. On the same day that Disney agreed to acquire Fox, the board extended Mr. Iger's employment agreement by 4 years and awarded him an over-the-top compensation package, reasoning that doing so was critical to driving long-term value from the acquisition, the paper says. In our view, the prospect of a much larger compensation package, more than double his previous package, created a strong financial incentive for Mr. Iger to pursue the Fox deal regardless of its prospects, creating a significant conflict of interest. And then at the end of the article, it says, here are Trion's agenda items from the white paper divided into 4 categories. I won't go into all of them, but the 4 categories are enhance corporate governance and accountability, accelerate media profitability, review of creative engine, and clarify strategic focus. And so you can check out the article, or I guess you can read the 133-page document yourself. But it's interesting to see what particular ideas Peltz has in mind for changing the way Disney is doing things. And so April 3rd is the moment of truth, I believe, for whether or not these guys will get a spot. As I said earlier, they're lobbying hard. Disney's lobbying hard against them, so it'll be fun to see how that turns out. And if it does turn out that these board members get on, well, they're not board members now, but seeing if Peltz and Rasulo do get on the board, I imagine it'll cause quite a shakeup at Disney. All right, so that's it for the spinoff section. Moving on, new trailers and release dates. So we got a trailer for The Wild Robot. That is a new film from DreamWorks Animation, coming out September 20th, 2024. Looks really good. Art style looks similar to Puss in Boots: The Last Wish, a little bit more of a painterly style, cel-shaded type thing. It's about a robot that kind of wakes up in sort of, I don't want to say post-apocalyptic, because post-apocalyptic makes it sound like the world is desolate, but it's sort of like this wild robot wakes up in a world that has been reclaimed by nature, in a sense, and goes on an adventure, discovering the world, sort of like WALL-E, but if WALL-E were to, rather than seeing the wonders of space, WALL-E just wakes up after Earth has been repopulated and regrown and explores it. I'm not explaining that well because there's no people. Like, there is no people in the trailer. It's just this robot having fun with animals and stuff. But it looks like a very nice little movie. That's coming out September 20th this year. We got a trailer for Sing Sing, which is a movie that debuted at Toronto International Film Festival. The synopsis for that is a small group of prisoners inside Sing Sing Correctional Facility, one of the world's most infamous maximum security prisons, attempt to stage their own original production, Breaking the Mummy's Code. So it's based on the real-life rehabilitation through the arts program at Sing Sing Maximum Security Prison. So it's about, a group of inmates that are involved in the prison's theater program. It stars a couple of professional actors, but also they act alongside many real-life, formerly incarcerated men who were themselves part of the real program in real life. and it received very positive reception at TIFF. It was picked up by A24. Looks solid. That's coming out July this year. We got a new trailer for Inside Out 2. We had a teaser trailer before, but this was like a full-length trailer that features, a few new emotions. That's I don't know. I don't know if I need to explain this, but Inside Out was you may have heard of it. It was a movie by Pixar about the emotions inside a little girl's head. And Inside Out 2 introduces a few new emotions. Let's see, embarrassment, anxiety, envy, and ennui. It looks good. I'm kind of disappointed that Bill Hader didn't come back to voice Fear because Bill Hader's awesome. Tony Hill's good too. Tony Hill is replacing Bill Hader. But I like watching the trailer. They're like the voice is very different for Fear going from Bill Hader to Tony Hill. Envy is being voiced as Ayo Edebiri. I'm not sure if that's how you pronounce her last name, but she's awesome as well. She's in The Bear and just caught up on The Bear, and she's awesome in that. So that's kind of cool. So the trailer looks good, looks solid. That's coming out June 14th, 2024. Let's see. The Idea of You. Looks like a romantic comedy film about a single mom that goes to a concert to chaperone her teenage daughter. But somehow while she's there, she meets like the lead singer of this boy band concert that she's chaperoning her daughter at. And they start like a romantic relationship. Okay, cool. It stars Anne Hathaway. So if you like Anne Hathaway, you may want to look forward to that. That's coming out May 2nd, 2024. And then finally, we have Arcadian. That is a movie starring Nicolas Cage. Watching the trailer reminded me a lot of like The Quiet Place or Bird Box, the Netflix movie with Sandra Bullock, where it's like post-apocalyptic, very few people left. And it seems to be the idea is that, with The Quiet Place, it's like you had to be quiet. You couldn't speak. With the Bird Box, you couldn't uncover you couldn't look, like you couldn't have your eyes open while you were outside. With this movie, it seems to be that like you cannot be outdoors at night, otherwise you will die. And so Nicolas Cage has got a couple of sons that he's with, and they're living in this post-apocalyptic world where they have to be inside every night, otherwise the monsters or whatever come out at night and kill anyone who's found outside. I'm not sure what the instigation of the conflict is, but it looks like they decide to start fighting back against these monsters. I don't know. There's a girl in the trailer as well. It didn't really say what the relationship with the girl was, but like she seemed to be someone else that like comes into their lives, not necessarily like was with them from the beginning, just kind of comes in and I don't know, joins them in their crusade against these monsters or whatever. So if that sounds interesting to you, check it out. That's coming out April 12th, 2024. All right, and then finally coming out this weekend, we've got Cabrini. That is a Angel Studios production, biographical film. Let's see, we've got Imaginary, which is a horror mystery thriller movie. That's the one with, I don't know if you've seen any trailers, but it's the one with the teddy bear. Where it's like a girl's imaginary friend is like killing people or something. Let's see, and then we've got Kung Fu Panda 4. That's the big one. What's funny actually is on this movie release calendar, this is from Box Office Mojo, so this is like an official source, but it says this weekend is supposed to see a new Rayman movie, like Rayman the video game character, but that doesn't exist. I don't know why it's on the calendar for this weekend, but that definitely has not been spoken of. I don't know, so I wonder what that's doing there. Rayman's big movie, action adventure comedy. Yeah, interesting that it's on there, because that is not coming out this weekend or at all, if ever, because I haven't even heard of it. All right, but as we close out, thank you for listening. Remember to come back next week and tell those you know, shout it from the rooftops, shout it to the screen as you watch a good movie, that if you like movies, this is a good podcast to listen to. But that's it for this week, and we'll now return you to your regularly scheduled life. Bye-bye.